What's up, guys? I just figured I'd do an intro while I'm going to check the mail. I'm gonna start posting on this channel, and it's actually basically going to be my central project. I've decided. Unfortunately, it's just irresponsible for me to do anything else. There's a war on the human spirit. There's a war of truth. We're dealing with such an overflow of information that those who aren't equipped with the logical and intellectual faculties to accommodate the advent of totally invasive media and mass surveillance will just be made victims, and the problems won't get fixed. I don't know how to get it through people's heads. We can't comply our way out of tyranny. Netflix will make its death to 2020, its death to 2021 videos. But what do you mean? You guys are a part of the same elite that can stop this whenever you want. This is a classic example of crisis manipulation. And this we can think of as the intro to my guerrilla philosophy, guerrilla spirituality course. Not gorilla the animal, even though we love monkey here. Anyways, we're going to have to take a deep dive into the nature of truth and the nature of insanity. Where do we start? What do we do? Well, first, I just wanted to bring up some critical ideas that are worthy of consideration. See, when we're dealing with the philosophy of language, we can go on and on forever. What are the purposes of language? What is the nature of language? What is the nature of ideas? And I figured I'd just brush by some simple ones, and I'll give you a crash course in I guess, some of my thoughts. So, first, I took the bus today, right? And I actually did. I took the bus, and there was a bus driver. There were other passengers. There was a system that verified my bus pass that's connected to my name. So there's a data registry system that can account for me having taken the bus. So, is it the fact that I'm able to say it's the truth that I took the bus today? Because I also happen to have went 13 kilometers from when I got on till I got off. So would it be more truth to say I got on the bus today, traveled 13 kilometers, and got off? Would it be more true? Is it the truth? Because I seem to have excluded the maybe up to 10 decimal points, maybe more, on that 13 kilometers. I excluded or unintentionally omitted how many steps I took between the bus stop to my house, and in the first place from my house to the bus stop. That's where we deal with the problems of the distinction between it's not me being dishonest to omit those elements of the situation I was describing. We have to make the distinction between honesty and the truth. But I don't really know if anything is true besides the sublime, transcendental idea of truth. That thing that's worthy of the name of God, that exists both at the start, before time, and after the end of time. So let's go on. What are these things that we're expressing? When we use words, what are they? Well, it seems to be that they're just a cultural linguistic inheritance, which is basically we've inherited a culturally aligned set of mouth noises that are used to evoke a phantasm in the person being communicated to. So these mutually intelligible, culturally inherited mouth noises are basically used to create a phantasm in the mind of the person being communicated to. And then we can consider that to have been effectively communicated. But can we say that those words that we're using are essentially true? Because if they really were essentially true, would they even need to be culturally inherited? Because when I say the word chair, ulamo chaise, ili slova stool, does it ever truly express the chairness of chair? I don't think it does. See, we seem to have dreamt up an archetype of chair because it actually does have a purpose and can become manifest in the world. And if not manifest in the world, it can become manifest in our thoughts, that there can be a thing upon which we can sit. Usually has 4 legs, but doesn't need 4 legs. Chairness exists as this almost transcendent, sublime idea. Who knows? Almost, I don't want to imply the legitimate and literal reality of a Platonic realm of ideas. But where is this abstraction of chairness that we all share that's potential even in those who have never heard of them, maybe in some tribal community where they just sit on the ground? They have the potential to conceive of a chair, to make a chair, to sit on a chair, to understand the chair, to make a word for the chair, to communicate the chair, to learn our words for chair. Now, what's at the bottom of this? Let's forego the Platonic realm of ideas. When we're dealing with these words, when we're dealing with these egregoric thought spheres, because there's some kind of sublime chairness. There is no one supreme chair out there somewhere, I don't think, that's the source of all chairness. There's one chair that's somehow a beanbag chair, and it's somehow a computer chair, and it has every possible chair in it. Because really, there's a spectrum of things that can fall into the distinction of chairness. There's something that may be very similar to a chair, but we can't call it a chair. You see, but someone might. Irrespective to that, that shows there's this fluidity. Language is not essential, and it's nowhere near it. Maybe nothing is essential, but that's not the point of this discussion. When we're dealing with language, what are we dealing with? Mutually intelligible, culturally inherited mouth sounds that actually probably have no bearing on reality and can't be considered the truth. That's just a noun, let alone something as something as complicated as an actual idea, right? I don't mean chair isn't an actual idea, but to say an actual less benign, or not benign, but less just less average a noun. When we're dealing with actual complex concepts, how can we really get close to the truth? Is it just that we have true enoughs in the fact that when I omit how many kilometers it was, or I omit the however many decimal points I traveled, or I omit the bus driver's name and all the things they've done in their life when I'm recounting that little excerpt of my life that I like to think is true when I say it? Is it just true enough? And it really isn't the truth? Is the truth something that's truly unattainable? Because if we aren't equipped to deal with these ideas, then we become prey to predators that know that there's a lot of manipulation that can take place, a lot of confusion that can be fomented. It's much more convenient to make a victim out of a confused person than someone who's more firm in their convictions. Now, I make an apprehensive distinction between belief and convictions, because I find beliefs preclude you from believing its opposite, or entertaining its opposite in a totally insincere, unbiased way. One thing that psychedelics have taught me through many experiences of personal bias suppression is that it does you an incredible disservice to have firm, concrete beliefs. So a lot of faith goes out the window when we're actually not doing ourselves an intellectual disservice. That's even why when I'm dealing with Christianity, I have much more of an attraction to orthodoxy. It's not solely based on faith. Works actually do matter. To think that works are irrelevant is total nonsense. But that's a bit of a polemic thing to say, and we're not trying to get into that here either. What I'm trying to discuss is mental discord, the problem of the truth, the problem of the saturation of information, the problem of us not being intellectually equipped for the advent of new media. A medium, with the more McLuhanist idea of what a medium is something that is an extension of the person. It changes the novelty and nature of human association with information and other humans. We can view the telephone as an extension of the ear, an extension of the voice. Now, with a telephone, our hearing can go into China. Our speaking can go into China. Right? Whereas physics and the voice, without this extension, let's say, it wasn't possible unless we created some other situation where we could extend it or transmit equivalent information in such a way. Right? So when we're dealing with these media, we're dealing with extensions of the self. And we are bombarded on every angle with so much information that we need to be steadfast in how we handle it. We need to deal with it with incredible sophistication, to not be manipulated, to not be made victims. You see, it seems as if our only choice right now is to have a type of mistrust, to have a type of distrust, have incredibly high standards of scrutiny. And this is where insanity or craziness, I very apprehensively use that word, so forgive me. But that's where insanity comes in, craziness. Because if we're just using a layman's term and we're not going to get incredibly technical and all of this, we could say craziness is having different standards of evidence. Someone could say, someone that we view as unwell can say, there's people coming after you. You say, what do you mean? There's people coming after me? Tell me more. What do you mean? And they'll say, oh, I saw this and that number on a license plate. And that meant that a red car is coming to get you at 4:43. And 4:43 is 4 plus 4 plus 3, which is 11, which is 1 plus 1, which is 2. So you have 2 days to live. You see, us as humans, we even create language. We create ideas. We notice archetypes. Well, or it's hard to say whether they're created or whether they're innate. And again, that's not the matter we're dealing with now anyways. But one thing humans, we can say it's true enough, and won't say the truth because of what we've already discussed. We can say it's true enough that we're noticing patterns, and we mutually agree that these patterns are happening, or true enough to say that they're happening. We'll put words on them, and then they become more accessible in our mental sphere. Right? Something without a word is much less accessible than something that has not been given that linguistic designation. Right? Because the thing under the mutually intelligible mouth noises, the words, they become like a legend, they become like a map. In this mental cartography we're doing when we're plotting the system of patterns, of opposites, of these things that occur between us and human lives. When we're dealing with insanity, we're dealing with different standards of evidence, and we now are actually having to contend with the most sophisticated ways of bending information, of manipulation on psychological levels. We've never had such sophisticated psychology of color, like the way certain logos are meant to incite you into hunger because of the use of certain colors, certain shapes. There's neurolinguistic programming, the use of certain words. There's certain languages that are more prone to duplicity. It's not just because of the British history of colonialism that English is the language of international commerce. It also isn't just a convenience that English being the language of being the lingua franca of commerce happens to coincidentally line up with it being one of the easiest languages to deceive, to be duplicitous, to say a lot without having said much at all. So one thing that we need to do now is be steadfast in how we handle information. We have to be distrusting of authority that demands our subjugation, our subservience, and our belief. Because the actual truth doesn't censor. The actual truth doesn't try to coerce you aggressively. The actual truth actually doesn't even need your cooperation. That's the power of the actual truth. Right? Chaos can ensue in between. But the truth is always what will survive. When I say truth, I mean the capital T truth. The thing that isn't a segmented, vacuous, mutually exclusive idea or set of meanings that we've compartmentalized and separated from the one grand process that is this universe playing out. This great organism of capital B being is the capital T truth. The absolute, containing all potential, containing all lives that are, have been, will be, or could be. That is the only capital T truth that there is. Anything else where we're trying to use language, it can only be true enough. Because we could zero into infinite details. We could close up infinitely on any given place as there is a small infinity on everything. We can have infinite zoom cameras maybe someday in the future. Or infinite is... It's not worth saying infinite, but for what it's worth, infinite zoom. And we can see that analogically to this, there's infinite details. There's infinite complexity. Now, is it necessary? It's not necessarily for what our experience is about. Maybe for understanding the fabric and the nature of these of the elements that comprise of being in little particular matter. Of course, like, we're investigating that stuff, we're interested in that stuff. But as far as any individual human life goes, like, the search for meaning, the bizarre, natural, arcane processes that we fulfill in being alive. We are born, we live a life, and then we die. And it seems that oftentimes we can live something that is very accurately analogical to what the movie The Matrix was about. We can live just like a battery, being subjugated to others' sphere of influence. And oftentimes it's an extremely nefarious plot that we involve ourselves in just from not caring, from not trying hard to avoid being cynically used by some nefarious force. To actually do the right thing is incredibly difficult. For one, because we literally just discussed how difficult it is to pin down the truth. But sometimes it's not that hard to pin down true enoughs. Sometimes figuring out what are naturally virtues isn't actually that hard. And that's the reason we have brave New Worldian either total saturation of information while being withheld other critical information to simultaneously distract us, yet starve us of that which informs true meaning. See, one thing that the nihilists are confused about is thinking, oh, nothing has meaning. No. Everything is meaning. We derive meaning from things. But things, objects that are here, comprised of the one great organism that we call the universe, because we hallucinate individuality. There's consequences of media like language. The content of language is words, which are those culturally inherited, mutually intelligible mouth noises. The content of language is words, which are ideas, and these ideas can be false, very close to their foundation. And one of those that's often done many of us a disservice is a misunderstanding of the subject-object relationship. I, you, he, she, we, it, they, do X. And see, this is another part of this. We analyze events as being mutually exclusive to everything else, being in their own vacuous, totally exclusive area. This is useful for when we're dealing with, like, theoretical events, like with three-dimensional Cartesian vector mechanics and stuff like that. But as for actually understanding the world, the Buddhists have an excellent truth, or I guess I'll say true enough. And it's pratitya samutpada, which is dependent co-arising. Everything is one thing and fundamental to each other. Everything is woven together, creating this lattice. And those with the eyes to see can see that there's self-similarity. There's different reiterations of the same mathematical archetypes that comprise of all of this great organism. Language has secondary, tertiary, quaternary, who knows how many consequences on our mind. And one of those is a disconnect with experience. I, you, he, she, we experience? No. The idea of I, you, he, she, and we, they, is within the experience. So already we've placed the cart before the horse. And then everything's built up from there. Well, look, we've built an edifice on quicksand. And already we're going to fall. We're going to fall into confusion and spiritual, physical, mental, emotional disharmony. Understanding these truths are important. These true enoughs are important. Having a correct relationship to language, to ideas, is important. Because since we can't even handle that, how do we expect to properly handle the sophistication of media increasing? The changes that came about from having archaic, pre-literate societies to us having the printing press and having mass circulation of books is staggering. It's not because, oh look, now there's information out. No. It's because the medium is the message, as Marshall McLuhan coined. It's that there are unintended consequences from the advent of new extensions of man that work us like dough, mold us into being different things without us noticing. Same thing with our foods. Meat, sugar, alcohol societies, mixed meat, sugar, alcohol, television societies are much more profaned and lulled into stupidity than, say, a psilocybin healthy relationship with computers, eating with exceptional scrutiny, being extremely aware of the most cutting edge, or at least consulting with experts, because we have to defer some trust onto them sometimes. But with scrutiny of even that, with scrutiny of how we defer trust, right? Those societies are very different. The meat, alcohol, sugar, television versus psilocybin, eating well, eating whatever is well for a la mode at that given time. They're very different. We need to hold ourselves individually accountable. The greatest revolution that we could possibly allow to take place would be to wage war against our stupidity, would be to foment an exceptionally sophisticated relationship to the truth and how we handle it, understanding that the things behind these mutually intelligible mouth noises that we inherit from culture are actually impressions. They're latent impressions. Latent impressions are what make up memory. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, there's a part of karma theory called sanskaras, which is basically latent impressions. Latent impressions are comprised of not only emotional reactions, tendencies, and sensory information, but then us having meta projections upon them. They leave an impression on us, and then we can imagine them condensing into a worldview that we believe is real. We have a fallacy of misplaced concreteness, where we think that our beliefs can actually have any proper bearing on reality when they can't. We can just hope that we have the best artifice possible. We've built this artificial edifice of thoughts and worldview with the greatest sophistication we can, while understanding that by its very nature, it cannot represent the capital T truth. Right? We have to be exceptionally careful. We have to be exceptionally distrusting of things that demands our cooperation, that insist on censorship. It will be our downfall. The window's closing. Technology so far. Can we even fight anymore? I don't know for sure, unfortunately. I can't tell you. But I can tell you that if each one of us wages war against our own lesser qualities, we wage war against our own passions, one of the best things we can do is make ourselves as impervious as possible to those forces that seek to deliberately elicit a reaction out of us. If we can allow ourselves to halt for a moment before our passions are incited, before we shouldn't even be living a life where someone can say words and make you uncontrollably angry. I'm not saying we're just so flat we barely have reactions, because in a way that will make life less cohesive and intelligible. Because having just reason and no emotion doesn't work, but we need to have a healthy relationship with emotion, tempered by reason, understanding language, and having as homogeneous, cohesive relationship with these things as possible in our own defense. We're also standing on the shoulders of giants. We're in great debt to our ancestors, and we're in even greater debt to those that are going to come from us. The future generations, if there even will be any anymore, are depending on us right now. Be responsible. Wage war against your stupidity. Really think about your relationship to media, because they're so incredibly powerful. The degree at which we're rocked when we have a phone in our pocket that's basically an extension of the nervous system into a cloud. We have a television coming from the Greek to see far. It's an extension of the eyes into wherever that thing was filmed. And it's spectacle. Sometimes our brains can naturally involve us in it. And this is where a lot of the entertainment of TV and movies comes from. Because our minds aren't developed to make the distinction of that not being real, unless we remind ourselves this is fake, these are actors. Maybe that comes with maturity sometimes, but that's why movies can scare children. Right? Not to say that movies and film don't often represent things that are quite real, because of course they are, or else they wouldn't be entertaining. We'd need that that part where we relate to it. But the whole thing is that we need to act in our own defense, because right now acting in our own defense is acting in everyone's defense. One thing that's ironic about how grievous this situation is that the solution has never been clearer. Someone may disagree with me on that, but I don't care. Wage war against yourself. You're your greatest enemy. This has been a truth that we've known for so long. A true enough that we've known for so long. You're what's standing in your way. You're what's standing in your way. Have an exceptionally high standard of evidence. Be careful of what experts you defer your trust to. Definitely have a distrust for fact-checker culture. Don't trust it. Because people want to catch you by the tongue for even saying anything about a conspiracy. Listen, history is pretty much a history of conspiracies. Right now, there's people in the Ford Motors boardroom trying to figure out how to get you to buy their car. There's people in the news trying to figure out how to get you to keep watching and not change the channel. This life that we're living, we're subject to innumerable conspiracies, so don't you dare let some fool or some evil-hearted person have you think that there aren't real conspiracies going on. But you have to walk the line and have a high standard of evidence to not fall into such ridiculous conspiracy theories that you risk yourself. There's also a social risk, an incredible social risk, of dwelling too far from consensus. You can have that in your mind. If you held yourself to that standard, to an exceptionally high standard, and feel comfortable with that composite compound set of true enoughs that make up your worldview, and you notice I've drifted far from consensus. But you know, okay, I'm sane, well, don't worry about it. But you definitely need to factor in the risks that come about socially from wandering so far from consensus. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about today. The nature of truth, in the very general sense, impressions, the consequences of media, sanity, drifting away from consensus, having high standards of evidence, being careful and waging war against ourselves. I'm going to deal with all of these things individually, in greater detail, and with greater editing. But I wanted to tell you that I'm committing to this now. My life has been severely compromised because of me willing to make sacrifices to do the right thing. Me willing to be the example. To say, I will sacrifice my job, my livelihood, my education. I will sacrifice it. But I don't know what to depend on now. But the whole thing is that one of those true enoughs I've learned from my life is that there's almost nothing better than a good death. It's okay to go to prison if you have to. And if it was in resistance of something truly evil. Evil is manifest in the world. Evil is manifest in the world. And in places that you may think are average now. That's how sophisticated evil is. They're throwing everything at you right now. So you can't go and try to attack these things out in the outside world just arbitrarily. You can't go ham-fisted at the world. What are they trying to attack? They're attacking you. They're attacking the human spirit. So you deal with you. Have incredible scrutiny. Have incredible care. Embrace an ethos of sacrifice. Embrace suffering as an end in and of itself. Because your comforts are your enemy. Your passions are your enemy. When they're just out of control and not tempered by reason. But your passions tempered by reason are worth dying for. Be careful. There will be a lot more videos coming now. Subscribe to my Patreon if you want me to be able to edit very nicely made videos, not me just going off script just like this. I could have much better articulated content if I was able to manage it. But I'm in a difficult position right now because of the sacrifices I've made. I may be trapped on the Newfoundland endless blockade. It's grievous. Support me whatever way you can, even if it's just subscribing and liking and all that. I'm trying to make a community here. I don't even want so many subscribers that I can't be able to deal with you guys, on an individual level. I want a community. I want a community that I can be involved with, that you can be involved with. Because I care about people. I care about you guys. That's the only reason I've even made sacrifices in silence for so long. Just making an occasional Facebook status. I admit, sometimes I just get a bit angry. But even then, it's tempered with extreme reason compared to the actual anger that arises in my consciousness, that arises in my sphere of experience. But I shoot it down. And I make sure only a very controlled iteration of it comes out for all to see. I'm following my own words. I'm not a hypocrite. That's one thing I can proudly say, that I'm not a hypocrite. I am doing what I'm saying. I will have much more specific videos as we go. This is a very general outline of what I think is important right now. I'll deal with more specific matters. Many that are in this video, I will address specifically, go into detail. I'll edit with stock photos and all of that because I'm going to be subscribing to services that allow me to have many stock photos and stock videos. Just support this channel in whatever way you can. If you want me to issue philosophy videos, Christianity, Buddhism, politics, media, current affairs, yoga, long-form meditations. I want to figure out a type of video editing with animation so that I can do my long-form 2-hour, 3-hour meditations, some of which I've uploaded in the past. But edit animation so he can see what I'm doing, as well as me doing interviews with people in the future. I'm actually going to be on one of my favorite shows soon called It's All Bad, talking about a lot of my problems with addiction, some supernatural stuff, some of the stuff I've been through, that I've made it through, that's defined me and made me a better person. So prepare for all of that. Support me in whatever way you can. If you're my friend, I'm sure you already will. If you want to be friends, I want to be your friend. Honestly. We need each other more than ever, and I'm willing to throw whatever I've got at you guys. Anything I have, anything that is mine is yours. I just need to continue to survive. Sorry, the sun just came in very strong. I just need to figure out how to survive. My school may be getting taken away from me. I study religion. Right now I was studying engineering systems design, but the prospect of travel was compromised by COVID. But I will deal with critical, current, philosophical matters, political matters, religious matters. I'm going to film me doing some psychedelic trips. I'll talk about my philosophy of psychedelics and how it fits into a Buddhist-influenced kind of psychedelic folk Christianity I have, which may sound ridiculous. But if you're interested, remember, just subscribe, like, show me that anyone wants this stuff. Because I want to do this. I want to produce this. In fact, this might be all I have. Everything might be getting stolen from me. And you might be next. So, if you can give anything, you can donate to my Patreon or to me directly. Or you can just, subscribe and comment, and I'll respond to any comments. I literally have like 40 subscribers. Like, that's what this channel currently has. I want to give you guys everything I've got. Everything I've got. And I've got a lot to say. I'll make sure it's organized. I'll make sure it's edited. I'll make sure it looks nice for you guys in the future if you want it. Anyways, good luck. I'm praying for you guys. God bless you guys. I'll come with more videos very soon. Anyways, meditation, me doing a live MEO DMT trip, etc. Subscribe, comment, like, do anything you can. I'll see you guys soon. Good luck. Keep up the good fight. Wage war against yourself. You're your worst enemy, but there are real enemies out there that are trying to get us. It's not a conspiracy. Or it's not a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy. Good luck, my guys. There are forces in the world that want you to be stuck in a room with a virtual reality headset on, where that's all you experience. Where you buy your stupid fucking NFT clothes that are valueless, meaningless garbage. They can say, oh, the sickness is out. Go back to your little meta-reality where we have the logical conclusion of media, an extension of every sense, where we have an avatar projected into a cloud sphere. We don't need to have meetings and risk our little flu anymore. Now we don't need to risk it. We don't need to risk the children. What about the children? Yeah, the children have fucking myocarditis. Fuck the NFTs. Fuck all that bullshit. Fuck the current state. I hate the Antichrist. And you can't trust the government. The nature of the state is to propagate itself. We need to arm ourselves to the teeth with information. We need to be proficient in how to handle it. We need to live a paramilitary lifestyle akin to being in total war constantly, or we will have to submit to full spectral domination, even all the way permeating into immaterial spaces, virtual reality spaces. This isn't an option. You have to fight now. Help me fight it too. We have no other choice.